Hello YouTube, this is Guy in the Backseat here from Dummies Games. I'm here to go over the first segment of my Yu-Gi-Oh! For Dummies. This segment is for people that aren't familiar with how the meta plays and might have a few questions about why people say certain things in the game and why rules go certain ways. So today's little lesson on Yu-Gi-Oh! For Dummies is called Explaining Priority. A good example to show anybody that actually is trying to figure out what the priority rules are, because see, in the OCG they don't have priority, in the TCG they do. So if you aren't familiar with these two cards, then you haven't played in a little while. But Zaborg, the Thunder Monarch, Caius, the Shadow Monarch, both of these cards are monarchs. Every monarch has an ignition effect. An ignition effect is basically an effect that occurs once the monster hits the field. Stuff like Trish, and stuff like I can't really think of another one off the top of my head aside from monarchs, but point is, an ignition effect means that once the monster is summoned via whatever its specific means are, in these two cards' case, a tribute summon, then their effect goes off. And this guy, for instance, Zaborg says blow up a monster on the field, Caius says banish a card on the field. If it's dark, do 1,000. Either way, point is, these are considered ignition effects. Now, I don't know where the fine line got, turned from black and white to gray on this, but apparently because these guys exist, at least in my opinion, some people started to argue that every monster in the game should have the ability to call priority on their effect. For instance, stuff like Judgment Dragon. That card says you can pay 1,000 life points to destroy every other card on the field. That card's effect is a cost to activate, and then you get to blow up a whole bunch of stuff if you manage to pay the life points. When Judgment Dragon came out, people were able to call priority and pay 1,000 and blow up, even if the opponent tried to bottomless them, or tried to do anything to get rid of it before it was summoned without negation. That's the big part here. Is as long as the monster isn't negated on its play, you can call priority to activate its effect. So, for instance, if you negate Caius, they don't get to banish a card, and if you negate Zaborg, they don't get to destroy a card. So, either way, negation is held above all rules, but this is where the gray line happens, because these guys specifically say when this monster is tribute summoned, activate said effect. Some monsters that kind of gray that line are stuff like Chaos Sorcerer and Blackluster Soldier. Let's say that on your turn in the graveyard you have both Caius and Zaborg. You remove them from play and you summon Chaos Sorcerer. The opponent activates Bottomless Trap Hole. You respond by saying priority because it's your turn, and you can select a monster that's face up on their field and banish it, and then he goes away. That's not how the card was initially made, but it's a priority ruling that we have here in the trading card game. Essentially, if a monster has an effect that can be activated on your turn, you can activate it as soon as they're summoned, even if other cards are activated in response to the summon. Something like Torrential. If, let's say, they have a monster that only works in the graveyard, like Sangan, and they have Torrential down, and you special summon Chaos Sorcerer, and they activate Torrential, before Sangan goes to the graveyard to get the search, you can call priority with this and banish Sangan. So now they don't get Sangan's search. That's one example. Another example of calling priority is, let's say that we have this scenario going on. You have a Gravekeeper's Descendant on the field in face-up defense mode because you special summoned it by some means, and you have a Gravekeeper's Descendant that you just normal summoned from your hand. You can at this point call priority even if they have a Torrential. Okay, Torrential is one of the best examples. If they flip Torrential to destroy all monsters on the field, you can you can call priority with Gravekeeper's Descendant to destroy Gravekeeper's Recruiter and destroy one of their back row, and then he goes away. Priority also works kind of silly with some cards, like Breaker the Magical Warrior. I don't have a Breaker on me, but let's say this is a Breaker the Magical Warrior. Breaker the Magical Warrior says that when he's normal summoned, you may place a spell counter on him and you can remove a spell counter once a turn to destroy a spell or trap card. Breaker has the power to call priority to place the counter, but he doesn't have the priority to remove the counter to blow up something, just so you know. It's like if there's questionable effects on a card, like multiple effects, you can only activate the first one, or some weird rule like that. I would suggest that you look it up before you try calling it on the opponent, but don't ever think that because it's your turn you can call priority at any point. Priority is something that's only granted immediately upon the summon. So if you special summon a Judgment Dragon, you don't call priority, then you normal summon another monster, and they torrential, you can't call priority with Judgment Dragon anymore. So that's just something that you need to know. I wish I had a Judgment Dragon to show you, but hopefully this video is helpful. Stay tuned, I'll be having episode 2 soon.